And I'm live. Greetings and welcome to Act One, a Canadian take on news events. I'm your host, Gordy Canuck, and today is Tuesday, the 23rd of September, 2025, and it's late in the evening, 10:43 as I look at the clock on my computer, and going to be talking tonight about the goings on in rural backwoods, Edgewood, BC, British Columbia, Canada, where it looks like the Canadian Food Inspection Agency will be moving ahead in the coming hours, in the coming day or two, and will be murdering about roughly 400 ostriches in an ordered haul, is the term that they use. Danny has shown up. Good evening, my friend. Glad to see you here. Got the praying hands and the cross emoji. I have my coffee going. See what I think about what's happening. This is a good mug for it. Nope, not happy with what's happening out in Edgewood, BC. Uh, and there's been all kinds of reporting. I've been trying to keep up on it as well as I'm able. And two of the one of the owners of the farm, um, Karen Esperson, and her daughter, whose name I believe is Katie Pasitney. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce these names, either one of those names. Katie Pasitney. She had been something of the spokesperson for the farm, as well as an owner of the farm, Karen S. Person. And they were both arrested today under circumstances that, according to all the reporting, they were told that they could go into the enclosure where the birds are located, where the ostriches are, and that they would be allowed to feed them. And I'm hearing differing reporting. Rebel News was on the scene. They had a reporter who was in a helicopter. And the story I heard from Rebel News is that the RCMP officers had put on hazmat suits, and so creating the impression that they were CFIA workers, Canadian Food Inspection Agency employees. And but then it turned out that they were police officers. I don't know whether that's true or not. This is all happening today. There's been all kinds of stories circulating around. Um, and Danny's writing hazmat suits. That's a joke. And what's people have been at this farm now for over a month, and they've been interacting with these birds, walking around with them. I don't know that I would want to get close to an ostrich. I've heard that they can be quite aggressive, but I imagine that they become acclimated to humans, and especially humans with which they are familiar. And people walking around without any protective equipment on, no hazmat suits. But the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is, to my mind, this is my opinion, they're pushing a narrative. And the narrative is that natural immunity does not exist. There's no such thing as natural immunity. We have to engage in draconian overreach to protect a narrative. And the narrative is that these birds, which are, by all reports, healthy, um, have to be euthanized, exterminated, murdered. Nancy has shown up as well and wishing everyone, giving greetings and reminding everyone to like and subscribe. Eat Me, who's otherwise known as Nancy, and Danny are both from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and they moderate my stream. So keep the chat from, oh, every now and again you get a troll, you get a, you know, welcome to the YouTube world. And just to let you know, I have switched it to live chat so that none of the messages go away. Uh, and Danny's writing that he has a natural immunity to BS. Forgive the language, you're forgiven. I consider BS. Even if I said it in full, it's a mild profanity at best. But, so what has happened is reportedly they've moved hay bales onto the farm. They're gonna be it sounds like they're going to be constructing a big barrier around the perimeter of the ostrich farm. Why would they do that? I would imagine they want this to be done in secret. They don't want people seeing these ostriches being euthanized. How they're going to do it, don't know. Are they going to shoot them? Are they going to fire darts at them that are poisoned and kill them that way? We don't know, and they don't want me to know. They don't want anyone to know. So they put up a huge physical barrier, hay bales around the perimeter. And there are further suggestions that the hay bales may be used to cordon the ostriches into a killing zone, use them to like a maze kind of thing, like a Donkey Kong little, and direct them toward the killing zone where they'll be shot or darted or whatever. And what's most annoying in all this is that the owners of the farm and their supporters have been calling on the Canadian Food Inspection Agency or any other agency to test the birds, to go in, test, see if they are carrying an actual virus. The story is that back in December, in and around 70 birds in their flock uh, died due to an outbreak of avian or bird flu. I forget the numbers, H5N1, whatever it is. And that 69 or 70 of these birds died from an outbreak of the bird flu. However, the remaining 399, like 400 ostriches, have all recovered if they ever got sick to begin with, and they are healthy, and they've been healthy December, January, February, March, April, May, 9 months ago that this happened. And these birds are, by all accounts, healthy. However, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is saying that uh, our policies, we have a policy, and our policy does not allow for further testing. We are not allowed to challenge the narrative that we have put out there that these birds might be infected with a mutant strain of the avian flu. And if they are, well, then that risks exposing wild birds, ducks, what have you, to this. And then those wild birds could then fly to a chicken farm somewhere and infect something. Well, can we test to see if they actually have a do they actually have a virus? And they say, well, no, our policies do not allow for further testing. There were 69 or 70 birds that died. They died of the flu, of avian bird flu. And so we're just guessing that maybe, perhaps, the remaining healthy 400 ostriches maybe might be infected with a mutant strain. And it reminds me so much of the COVID narrative. Everything that was everything that justified the overreaching measures that we all endured for, in and around 2 years, starting in March of 2020. It was all predicated on this idea that healthy individuals could spread a viral pathogen. I have no symptoms. Well, that's one of the symptoms. Having no symptoms for the first time in history became a symptom. Koji Malik has shown up. Uh, let me catch up on what's being written. Denny goes on to say, hopefully somebody gets some video and leaks it and makes it go absolutely viral. What the government is doing is disgusting. 100. What has happened now is the degree of trust that individuals such as myself, such as Danny, such as many of us have in public health officials and government officials of any description has gone, it's reached the point of no return. It cannot be recovered. We have no trust in because natural immunity is you can't make a profit from it. You can't make money from natural immunity. If you're in the pharmaceutical business and people can achieve natural immunity, then for the longest time, talking about the human population, for the longest time, you've had chicken pox. Okay, you don't need the varicella or varicella, however it's pronounced. You don't need the chicken pox inoculation because you've already achieved natural immunity. Your body has been exposed to the virus. You've developed antibodies. You're now immune, and recovery from natural infection we were always told, was the best form of quote unquote vaccination. Get infected, recover. Now you have antibodies, and they have tests that can determine if a person has antibodies to a viral pathogen. They're called serology tests. And if people have immunity, then they don't need the jab. Well, you notice that flipped during the COVID time because people who had COVID recovered were still mandated to, if they wanted to keep their job, if they wanted to get on a plane, if they wanted to take their kid to hockey, you couldn't say, "Well, I had it. I've been infected. I recovered, so I have antibodies. So I have been quote unquote vaccinated." Vaccination, according to the original definition that I read, said yeah, exposure to a causative agent or substance with live or attenuated dead virus that allows your body to build up antibodies. Doesn't have to be a pharmaceutical product that is delivered through the end of a needle, through the end of a syringe. Danny goes on to say that their policy can kiss his grits. And Danny goes on to say, now the government can proceed to our chickens and turkeys, all in a way to control what we eat. That is certainly a concern. If the government can walk into a poultry farm, goodness knows what's to say it can't happen with livestock, mad cow disease, or whatever. Well, we suspect that your herd might be infected with a mutant strain of mad cow disease. So we're going to cull your entire herd. You have 500 head of cattle, and two of them got sick and died, and all the rest are healthy. Yeah, but they might. They might. Maybe. Well, let's test them and find out. No, our policies do not allow for further testing. We can't do any more testing. It's been reported by a radio station out of Kelowna, BC, which is the I forget the call letters of the number of the station. I forget the station ID, but I did a video on this back on September 2nd or 3rd, about 3 weeks ago, and I read directly in that video from a report. I don't know who owns the radio station. It's probably Bell Media or Global Media, or it's probably one of the big players. But at any rate, they were reporting in there that the owners of the farm had been told that they would face significant fines, massive fines if they were to hire an independent body to conduct testing. You're not allowed to test these birds. And there are so many reminders to me of what happened during the COVID era. You look at something like ivermectin, and um, it was so quickly shut down. A lot of doctors were prescribing or recommending ivermectin to their patients. And Joe Rogan famously took ivermectin in tandem with zinc and a couple other things. He had a little cocktail of two or three medications, and apparently, very quickly recovered fully. And then what happened? They started a campaign to refer to ivermectin, which has both a veterinary formulation and a human formulation. Well, all of a sudden, the human formulation didn't exist anymore, and ivermectin was strictly horse paste. And ivermectin has been on the market for decades and is generic. There's no patent protection on it. Any pharmaceutical company can produce it and sell it very cheaply. And what happened was a study was published to the Lancet, which used to be, in my mind, the preeminent medical journal in the world. Well, what happened was the Lancet published a study that showed that ivermectin was not only ineffective but also dangerous. But it was later found out that that study was based on fraudulent data out of Australia, and that the company that had published the paper, a company by the name of Surgisphere, was headed by a doctor who was undergoing multiple malpractice suits. And this company, Surgisphere, only had two other employees listed on their corporate roster on their website. And one employee was an exotic dancer, a stripper, and the other one was a writer of science fiction. And so you have this company, Surgisphere, headed up by a doctor who's being sued for malpractice multiple times, that lists a stripper and a science fiction writer as corporate directors. And somehow this company, using fraudulent data, is able to get through the peer review process and is able to have their paper, their fraudulent paper, published to the world's preeminent medical journal. And fortunately, it got retracted, but by then the damage was done. So let's read what's being written because there's a number of things. Um, what's Danny writing? That the government is very slowly trying to cull all small farms out of the picture so that the big, factory farms are the way that this Universal Ostrich Farm, Edgewood, BC, privately owned, family little production, and according to everything I've read, they farm these birds, they raise these birds for scientific research. Apparently, ostrich eggs are uh, of enormous scientific research benefit. And I mean, imagine if these birds have a natural immunity that's now being passed down to their offspring through their eggs. I don't know. I don't have a scientific background per se. I have taken some science courses at the university level, but I don't make myself out to be any expert in any way, shape, or form. But I'm not scientifically illiterate either. And is it possible that these eggs contained antibodies? Could something be learned here? No, just kill them. That's the narrative. We don't have policies that allow for further tests. That's directly from a CTV article reporting on the response of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. They're saying that the CFIA is saying that we don't have any policies. Our policies do not allow for further tests. We've made our decision. And now the owners of the farm have gone to the courts and have tried to get this cull order overturned. They have been successful in getting a couple of stays, a couple of delays while they put their case forward. But I think it's happened twice. What the courts have ruled is that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is operating within its mandate and it's not breaking any of the rules laid out for it. And so the call must go forward. The court is refusing to rule on whether the call is justified. They're refusing to rule on whether, we're shooting ourselves in the foot by getting rid of what could possibly turn out to be a possible antidote cure to avian bird flu because of the antibodies that these ostriches may have developed. Well, we don't want to learn about that. It's almost like, well, if they have, then we're in trouble. Then, rather than culling livestock, we'll have to treat livestock, and we can't go and destroy small farmers. To Danny's point, everything is factory farm nowadays. Airworks '07 is here. Good to see you back. I don't understand how the police can do this and hurt innocent animals. It is devastating. The impression I'm getting from people on the ground, what little I can get, I have had face-to-face interaction with one individual who is there. His name is Jim Kerr. I met Jim on a few occasions during the COVID insanity when I was not supposed to be going and gathering in large numbers for events in Peterborough or in Aylmer and Toronto or in Coburg, all the places I went, Napanee. I wasn't supposed to be doing that. because, I might be infected and everyone else around me might be infected. Goodness, during COVID, sadly, in May, June of 2020, an individual who I become friends with, Colin, sadly, he went through some rough times and lost his housing. He didn't have anywhere to live. And so he had to live in a homeless shelter. And so during that insane period of COVID, and I was still in the army at the time, during that insane period of COVID, early on, like I'm talking May, June, July, when, you weren't allowed to have, friends or neighbors or anyone into your backyard for a barbecue, for goodness sakes. What was I doing? I was going and picking Colin up once a week, twice a week, at the homeless shelter where he had ended up. And so I'm picking up a guy who's sleeping in a homeless shelter. If there was genuinely my editorial non-expert opinion, but if there's a deadly pathogen spreading around, it's going to devastate the homeless population. Newsflash, it didn't. And I used to go and pick them up, and we'd go to the drive-through because the drive-throughs were allowed to be open. So McDonald's and Burger King got to keep the money flowing in, and we would grab a couple cheeseburgers or whatever, and then we'd go down to the reservation in Tyendinaga and get some cheap gas and some cheap reserve Indian cigarettes, because cigarettes were essential during COVID. I mean, there were so many contradictions. And now this cull of these 400 ostriches is absolutely heinous, gross, disgusting. Um, and then Denny is saying something about my meat too, no hormones, no mRNA shots. It'd be nice if I had access. I could probably find one, but life is busy, life is hard, life is expensive. And when you go to uh, a butcher that sources its, where the cattle are not subjected to antibiotics and not subjected to, commercial feeds, but are rather grass fed, there are places like this out there. But the meat is very expensive, cheap, or far more expensive than what you get at the grocery store. But you have a much better idea, in my opinion, of what you're getting when you go to an establishment such as that, when you go to a farm that's butchering their own meat and feeding them. I also have Blossoms and Bites here, um, saying that the fines were $200,000 per bird plus up to 6 months in jail. I'm wondering if Blossom and Bites is Heather, who used to be Townhouse Gardener. I'm just wondering if you've changed your name yet again. And Airworks is saying hello to everyone. And then Coach Malik down in Florida saying something is available topically in the R. I don't know what the R is. I might have missed an earlier message. And then Blossoms and Bites goes on to say, with respect to ivermectin, that it has been on the market, according to her, for 50 years. I just said decades. I wasn't sure of how long it's been on the market. So let me, um, and then Danny's saying that the only virus that's going around is the woke mind virus. No kidding. Everyone's saying good evening. Max Power has shown up, wishing me a good evening, and good evening to you as well. Good evening to everyone. Max is extending his greetings. Danny's saying they didn't want you to use paper money yet. They sold newspapers made of paper. Mental gymnastics needed is insane. The contradictions of the COVID era were mind blowing. You know, wear a mask, but if you sit down, you can take it off. And they never told people how to properly handle and wear personal protective equipment in a medical grade PPE. Medical grade PPE has to be handled obviously in a sterile fashion. And yet you have these mental midgets, and you still have them pulling their dirty, germ encrusted masks out of their germ filled pockets, gobbing all over them with their hands, touching product in stores and putting stuff back. All the while, they keep touching this petri dish on their face. It's disgusting. It's gross. It's not a big deal to me personally because I'm not a germaphobe. I do not believe that the human immune system or even animal immune systems are a conspiracy theory. The immune system is real. It's God given. I am a professing Christian, if anyone's new. Uh, God designed us wonderfully, and but this is a temporary. We are only all of us. We're only here temporarily. Eventually, we are going home. Uh, and then I have Blossoms and Bites writing an update on the Universal Ostrich Farm file 41992. I just got off the phone with the clerk at the Supreme Court of Canada, Umar. The lawyer e-filed a motion for stay of execution this morning, while Omar should have filed this on the 19th with the original notice of appeal. At least it's now on record. The motion was filed urgently. Hopefully that works. Hopefully that works. Back on my video of September, I think it was September 2nd, um, which, ah, that was the day my dog, who used to be here for all my videos, Candy the Wonder Dog, that's the day she passed away because of toxic poisoning. Uh, Gotten into her liver and to her brain. But anyway, um, that was 3 weeks ago. And when I did that video at the end of it, I predicted somewhat. I was suggesting that within the next 2 to 3 days, you would see a large police presence descend on the Universal Ostrich Farm to enforce this cull order. And as so often happens, my prediction was correct, but it took three, it didn't take 2, 3 days. I have immediacy bias when I see things coming far quicker than they do. And what happened was yesterday, uh, 40, 50, who knows how many cruisers, RCMP cruisers rolled in. And apparently they've cordoned off the farm so that no one can get into it now. That's why Rebel News was using a helicopter to report on the situation. They had a reporter on the scene. And so they've cordoned off the entire area. There have been reports that they've been cutting the power and that internet connectivity has likewise been shut down at times. So and it strikes me that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, they realize that they are losing public relations. They're looking like jack boots. They're looking like brown shirted, booted, you know what's. And it's not a good image for them, no kidding. And so they're trying to manage the situation. They are hell bent on murdering these birds, but they want to do it in such a way that it's out of the public eye. And man, oh man. So I'm catching up on the messages. Airworks is writing that he still sees people wearing masks. They have been so brainwashed. No kidding. I still see them as well. Thankfully, they're a small, very small minority. I would guess 3 or 4% of the population at best, but they're still out there. And even 3, 4, 5% is significant that if you're out and about, if you're going to the grocery store, Home Depot, Walmart, gas station, you're going to see these mental midgets around. Uh, Danny saying that he saw a face diaper wearer today on the bus, laughed at him. He got so upset, and then Danny laughed again. Uh, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to laugh. As a matter of fact, because I work in a retail environment, I have to deal with these people. And I obviously, it would not be, you're not going to win Employee of the Month if you laugh at people for wearing a face mask. But regardless, I just be as friendly as I can with them and kill them with kindness is the way I look at it. I have had conversations talking about the fact that while during my military career, I served with a field ambulance unit and I was trained on the proper way to put medical grade PPE how to put it on properly, how to take it off properly, how to handle it while I'm wearing it. And the secret to handling or wearing PPE is that medical grade PPE, like masks, is that while you're wearing it, you are never to touch it. And if you do touch it, you are immediately to wash, clean, sterilize your hands because the outside material, obviously, if you think there's a viral pathogen floating around, and why would you wear a mask otherwise? Obviously, you think that. So if you touch the outside material, you have now contaminated your hands. And so you need to wash, clean, sanitize your hands. Do you think anyone does that? Of course not. And they touch their masks all the time. Uh, And Blossoms and Bites is saying it's Lisa, and yes, formerly Townhouse Gardener. Yeah, the name keeps changing, but I know that Lisa has a Facebook page that's all about gardening and flowers and everything like that that I belong to. I love the pictures. Danny saying, what I repeat, he always puts this up, and you can't say it enough. Jesus is King. Airworks it was heartbreaking. It still is. Just today, I came across an old leash and I'm like, oh God, candy. And when I open the back door here, I sometimes hear what sounds like paws on the ground or on the patio or on the back deck. And I'm like, there's not a day goes by, but sadly, I had been down the road before, but this was very sudden and very tragic. Uh, And Danny's bringing up getting back to the birds, getting back to the ostriches, what a waste of taxpayer money. There have been reports of 100 RCMP officers. I don't know whether that's true, but I did see a live streaming video that Jim Kerr put out, and it was just cruiser after cruiser. They were the SUV type, cruiser after cruiser after cruiser. There had to be more, there had to be dozens of them there. This massive police presence. And you think of all the criminal activity taking place in Canada, and yet we can dedicate dozens and maybe 100 plus RCMP officers to killing ostriches because they maybe might contain something and we can't, and it drives me crazy. Do some testing, do serology testing, find out if these birds have antibodies. Or, no, we're not going to do that. Why not? Why not? That's the big question. Why won't they do additional testing? We do not have policies to allow for further tests. Why not? Because we want to murder these birds so that we can so that then we can move into other farms and do the same thing over and over and over again. And as to Danny's point, force everyone to source your food from government approved sources. You're not allowed to go to that family farm anymore to get your eggs or your poultry or your beef. You must buy it from the approved sources. And then Max is writing, sorry for the loss of your beautiful dog. She was magnificent. She was. The loss of my own dog several years ago devastated me. Uh, I miss her too. And I'd start out everyone, she'd have to shake a paw, lay down, speak. And quite often the stream would be late because she was out in the backyard chasing rabbits. We get a lot of rabbits, possum, got a lot of things in the backyard here. And ultimately, that's what, in talking to the veterinarian, that's what they think happened is that she probably got a hold of a diseased animal that had been poisoned because there have been people that put out, people spend a lot of money on their gardens and then rabbits come along and they tear them up. So they lay out poison, and the poison doesn't always kill a rabbit right away, but it does. They get slow and stupid, and Candy could catch a rabbit, even a non-diseased rabbit. And I suspect that she got a hold of a rabbit that had, and that she ingested, that she was poisoned through a poisoned rabbit, or maybe a rat or a mouse, or who knows. Uh, Anyway, nothing can be done at this point. Danny's saying that 0.001% is too many. I'm not sure what that is. in reference to, but maybe it's, too many cops. Uh, and then Eat Me is writing, smells like a Ruby Ridge 2.0. Don't think these people will budge. Well, they'll arrest them. They will arrest them. That's what they did to this Katie Pasitne and to Karen Esperson. They were arrested. They went into the enclosure to feed the birds. The story from Rebel News is that there were RCMP officers wearing, disguised perhaps with hazmat suits, who then arrested them. Uh, they were charged, not found guilty. They'll have to have their day in court, but they've been charged under the Health of Animals Act. Isn't that ironic? That's what they've been charged under. I kept a few notes. And the Health of Animals Act. How are you going to protect the health of animals? We're going to kill 400 healthy ostriches. Well, they might not be healthy. They might have a mutant strain of bird flu. Okay, so you tested to find out? No, our policies don't allow for that. We're not going to test them. What? Crazy what's going on in this world. Max is writing, funny how the government froze ordinary people. Yeah, the Ottawa trucker convoy, when the government had the banks freeze people out of their accounts. He's saying, funny how the government froze ordinary people's bank accounts for having the wrong political beliefs, but they can't follow where the millions of dollars the Liberals lost in Arrive Can or Green Slush Fund. Yeah. Rules for thee, not for me. Airworks is saying, there are memories of our love pets everywhere. Yeah, there are, and they're everywhere. And there's still little bits of hair that I find around. I'm doing okay. And we might, I'm getting old. I mean, my next birthday will be my 60th. And dogs typically live 10 to 15 years. And I'm thinking, do I want to get another dog? And I do, and I don't. I do, and I don't. The heartbreak from Candy makes me think maybe it's just as well, uh, not to. But we'll see. We'll see. The young guy, my youngest, just turned 12, and he does want another one. So I imagine there's a strong possibility. So at any rate, uh, yeah, it's one thing if my previous dog, Kira, a Peekapoo, that was not sudden. She was suffering from liver and kidney disease as well, but she was 12, 13 years old, rescue, so wasn't sure on exactly the age, somewhere around 13. And, she was suffering, and so the decision was made and was able to prepare for it. With Candy, it was very quick and very sudden. There wasn't time. Uh, and then Blossom is writing, you should never poison anything, including mice and rats, because owls, birds, whoever eats them is going to get poisoned as well. Oh yeah. Everyone wants I had a neighbor, she just moved, and she was very upset with all the rabbits because she spent a lot of money on her garden. Did look very nice, but she said that the rabbits were just tearing it up. And yeah, we all want a nice place to live. Uh, and then Max is saying that he thinks that's where we're heading. Carney's net zero agenda will be justification for only eating approved meats, likely lab grown synthetic meats. Yeah, fake meat. And then I've had some thoughts on where things are going in this world, and I'm not optimistic in the least. The only thing that keeps me going is right here, faith. This is not my world. It's not Mark Carney's world. It's not Bill Gates' world. It's not Elon Musk's world. This is God's world, and everything will be made right. If not on this side of the veil, then on the next. Tucker Carlson on his network has put out something of a documentary on 9/11. And it strikes me it's getting some interesting play, the 9/11 narrative. And it strikes me that are they are all the birds coming home to roost now? Are they gonna are we gonna find out the truth about 911, about JFK, maybe even about the COVID overreach and insanity, based on the knowledge that, well, we're tearing it all down anyway. This old order that we've all been living under for the last, several decades, 100 years probably or more. We've reached this point, we're gonna tear it all down anyway. So who cares if they find out the truth? Because in the new surveillance state, in the new 1984 style Orwellian world that's being ushered in, no one will be able to protest anything anyway. Let me read on what's being said, and then we'll call it a night. Uh, and Airworks is saying it's saying that the candy wasn't poisoned directly. It wasn't like anyone wanted to poison my dog. What happened was, I believe, and this is speculation, that people put out poison to get at the rabbits, and that candy got a hold of a poisoned rabbit and call it a secondary ingestion of a toxin, because that's what the veterinarian said, that she showed signs of toxic poisoning. But again, no one directly was trying to harm Candy. Uh, and then, oh, the point, Danny, when he was saying that 0.001% is too many, he was referring to it's too many for people. Nobody should be wearing a diaper on their face, but uh, and then Airworks goes on to say, arresting them for feeding their poor animals. This the saddest thing in all this, well, not the saddest thing, I mean, it's all sad. So what's the worst part? But think about this woman, Karen, and her daughter, Katie, and the stress that they must be living over. You talk about the sword of Damocles hanging right over their heads, and they're just, doing everything they can to keep that sword from falling, but it's always right there. And it looks like any second now it's going to fall. And it's torture. It's got to be torture for them every day, wondering, is this the day? What's going to happen today? Can we keep our birds alive for just one more day, so that maybe something can happen, maybe some miracle, maybe the Supreme Court of Canada will step in. You've got Mehmet Oz, you've got RFK Jr., you have other individuals in the States. There's even been offers to relocate the birds down to a sanctuary in Florida. And it's like, no, we got to kill them. We got to kill them. We got to kill them. We have this narrative that we have to protect, that natural immunity cannot be relied upon. You can't rely on natural immunity. You need pharmaceutical products. We can't make any money off natural immunity. Uh, and then Danny goes on to say, do it, Gord. I lost my in reference to getting another dog, I think. I lost my cat in November. I got a new feline in January. I don't know how much I needed it till it didn't know how much you needed that pet until you got it. If we do, it will be January, February, early in the new year. And when it happens, it happens. Um, Nancy's writing, too bad Trump can't interfere, and it's a good thing. Liberal women will now make a point to take Tylenol while pregnant. Yeah, that will show the baby. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, this idea that Tylenol is the root cause behind the explosion in the explosion in cases of autism. It's something like 1 in 35 in the United States. Children are being dosed on the autism spectrum now, whereas before you don't see it anywhere. Apparently, the Amish and the Mennonite and Hutterite communities, people who live, in these old order, old colony type communities where nobody gets inoculated for anything, where they don't use electricity, they don't use phones or television or anything else, none of this high frequency radiation that the rest of us are exposed to. And they're incidence of autism, from what I've been led to believe by congressional testimony and the like, is basically zero. The only thing I have noticed when I've gone to Kitchener-Waterloo area, St. Jacobs, where there's a large Mennonite community, Amish community, mostly Mennonite, but some Amish, um, is that there's a higher incidence of what I believe are referred to as congenital birth defects, because these communities, the Amish, the Mennonite, they tend to marry within their community. And when you have a small gene pool, eventually at some point within 2, 3 generations, you're third, fourth, fifth cousins. And I believe it leads to a higher rate of congenital birth defects, things like shortened limbs, whatever. Uh, and then Max goes on to say, I think dogs are so beautiful and awesome, and they teach us so much about life and how fleeting and precious it is. It is very true. Dogs are man's best friend. I should make a bumper sticker that says that. Uh, let's catch up. I've missed a few messages. Okay, Danny is saying that he's going to go hunt up some venison, some deer meat. Um, and Blossom believes that 9/11 is that BB is implicated in 9/11. I'm going to go back to a theme that I've had for a while, and that theme is that it was Masonic. It was Masonic. It was Freemasonry behind, with their operatives and governments all over the world that had a hand in things like 9/11 and 7/7. That was the London transit bombing that happened in 9/11 was 2001. I think 7/7 was 2002. And uh, to my mind, it is Masonic. And do I think Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu, do I think he's attached to Freemasonry? I don't have any proof that he is, but I do believe he is. Uh, Max is writing that the word apocalypse also means to uncover and reveal. I haven't heard that before, but makes sense. Uh, Definitely feels like we are living in such times. Yeah, and I guess you're referencing back to what I said about, hey, let them find out the truth. Let's, expose everything, because what the heck, we're going to be living in an Orwellian state anyway. We're bringing it in. We're going to have biometric surveillance of the population 24/7. There's going to be no place you can go. Big Brother's always going to be watching. So if they know that the government was somehow behind the assassination, that there were players within the so-called US deep state who were involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, hey, it's a new system now. That was the old system. Now we have a new system. It won't happen again, sure. Uh, Danny goes on to write, they find out that $2.5 trillion go missing, and the next day, 9/11, things that make you go, there are so many things that happen on 9/11. And I should do a video re-enumerating all of them, because I can go back. I have an old blog that I used to write, Canadian Soapbox, still available on Blogger. And I'm sure I have writings in there about all the anomalies. There just literally dozens of things that don't add up. If it was just one, two, or three, I would file it under the heading of shit happens, because crazy things can happen. Unusual life does not always make sense. I know that with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there's a lot of people who their smoking gun is what they perceive to be the lack of an exit wound. And so I said, that's their smoking gun. I'm willing to say at this point, if that's the only thing, well, then stuff happens. Crazy things can happen, where 99 times out of 100 you would expect, but sometimes crazy things can happen. We don't know how many, oh, I was watching some videos on it. How many grains of gunpowder were in the ammunition and all kinds of, and and I've said it before, I'm no ballistics expert, far from it. I was in the army, but I was on the radio, not, with a headset on my head. I was Radar O'Reilly to a degree, doing a lot of filing and paperwork and things like that and talking on the radio, not out on the firing range regularly. And as I've said many times, not a particularly good shot, although lying in the prone position, I like anyone lying in the prone position. All you have to do is control your breathing and have good trigger control, and you can get you can be very accurate. But anyway, uh, so if that, and right now, to me, that is the biggest anomaly, but it's maybe just something weird, strange, unusual happened and there was no exit wound. The biggest thing for me is if something happens to this kid, Tyler Robinson, if something happens to him, if he is Epsteined or Lee Harvey Oswalded, if something happens to him, like happened to those two individuals, then all bets are off. I'm going to go into full conspiracy mode because as things stand, I get the official narrative. Tyler Robinson, uh, in a relationship with a guy who likes to dress up and is apparently, undergoing the full Monty procedure to, align his biology where he wants to become a surgically altered male that can pretend to be a woman, whatever. And so that lends plausibility, at least, to the narrative that Tyler Robinson was sufficiently upset that he decided to go out and murder Charlie Kirk. Okay, there is a plausibility to that narrative. So he took I think it's his grandfather's hunting rifle, climbed up onto a roof. There's video of a guy climbing down, running across, climbing down after the shots were fired. Now, the suggestion is that, oh no, Tyler Robinson is just the patsy. He's just the patsy. He's just the fall guy, that this was someone else. A lot of people are using this to say it was Israel. That was Benjamin Netanyahu again, which, well, why is, if they can take out Charlie Kirk, but Tucker Carlson is untouchable. They can't get at him. They can't get at Candace Owens. They can't get at any of these people. They could only get at Charlie Kirk. I mean, I have difficulty with this narrative, but this idea that there was a criminal conspiracy, that Tyler Robinson was involved with other players, and that he's just designed to be the fall guy. Well, uh, so long as he's alive, we have a chance to find out the truth, I think. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Anyway, Danny's writing police state. And then Airworks is talking with reference to the farm owners, can't believe the stress that they are under. And they do, they love those birds like they're pets. And Airworks is writing that some of them are over 35 years old. I don't know how long an ostrich lives, but you know, animals be farmers love their animals. I went recently to a farm where and was involved with helped out with some feeding of some cattle, and the cattle are very edgy. And I was told, they're not used to new people, so just be very calm. Don't. And I just took one little step in their direction, and I caused something of a stampede. They all ran away from me. They didn't run away from Jerry. They were used to Jerry, but they weren't used to me. Anyway, um, yeah, the animals do become your pets, even if they're farm animals. And then Blossoms is writing, think about grieving someone you lost and then multiply the grief and the loss by 400. because there are 400 birds. I think it's 399, but 400 is a nice round number. And then Eat Me is writing, this is what city dwellers do: retire to a more remote place to be surrounded by nature and poison the wildlife they consider a nuisance. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in my neck of the woods, anyone who moves out here from Toronto, which is where most people come from when they relocate to Northumberland County, they're often called cityots. Oh, they're cityots, idiots from the city. Uh, and Amy's of the opinion that cayenne pepper on the soil would have controlled the rabbits, or at least been away. Uh, and then Nancy is of the opinion that he will be Epstein, that Tyler Robinson will be Epstein. She's going to send me a video after the live that will leave me asking 100 more questions. You know, it's the size of the questions. I mean, I have some questions already. Why, when they released what they present as the text messages between Tyler Robinson and his lover, why are there no timestamps on it? I had that question. I did have one question answered. And this is curious. That kid Tyler Robinson, when he was in the arraignment hearing, or whatever you want to call it, by video, and he was wearing, it looked like a weird vest type thing. And I was wondering, I was expecting to see him in a yellow jumpsuit, and instead he had this weird, looked like something Michael Jackson or Prince might have worn. And it's reported that it is a suicide vest. And I probably even shouldn't even use that word on here, but I've said it already, so too late now. Suicide vest is what Tyler Robinson was wearing in those videos. And are they trying to program us ahead of time for something, an eventuality? Nancy seems to think it's going to happen. And well, we did. This isn't surprising. This is why we had him in a suicide vest. And anyway, Blossoms is writing. She's of the belief that it was Israel. Uh, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Um, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Blossoms is writing that Candace and Tucker don't take money from Israel. Tucker Carlson used to work at CNN, so CNN is not a mouthpiece. Yeah, you can take the available facts as a round peg and then hammer the crap out of them until they fit into the square, or the square peg into the round hole, and the square peg represent the facts, and the round hole can represent your preconceived, conspiracy, and then just hammer them in so that it works. And I think, anyway, I don't want to go there right now. Now, Danny's writing that a week before Charlie. Now, you see everything I'm hearing of this nature, that Charlie refused a large sum of money coming from Israel and everything, it's all coming from it's telephone. It's, well, I know someone who was in Charlie's inner circle, and Charlie told this guy, and then this guy told someone, and then this someone told me. We're too many steps removed from the source for me to find it credible. Uh, and Max is, and this is where I talk about hammering the square conspiracy theory into a round hole and making it fit. Oh, well, by taking out Charlie Kirk, they're going to scare everyone. Hasn't worked. Look at Candace Owens. Look at Tucker Carlson. Do they seem afraid? Are they being cowed from their rhetoric? No. If anything, it's getting amplified, bigger and bigger. And at any rate, let's read on. And Danny wants a copy of that video as well, the one that Nancy's going to send me. So we'll pass it around. And then Nancy's writing, remember that Israel is only a name run by run by jerks and blah blah blah, but you cannot generalize the entire population living there. I mean, so you hate Mark Carney. Does that make all Canadians bad people? You know, the Canadians. You know, they want to take over the world. They want to force everyone to take an unwanted medical intervention. So we got to get rid of Canada. There are good people living in Israel. And Blossoms is writing that that thing that Tyler Robinson had on his jacket that prevents him from doing self-harm. See if that's you see, if something happens to him, I'm convinced that if they want to ensure that Tyler Robinson is able to stand trial, that nothing happens, that they have the capacity, that they're fully capable of ensuring that nothing happens to him. And the only way anything will happen to him, in my view, and I'm saying this, well, he's still with us. I'm saying if anything happens to him, the gloves are off. I'm going full conspiracy mode. If something happens to Tyler Robinson, I will go full conspiracy mode. I have my own conspiracy theory that I'm not giving voice to right now because Tyler Robinson is still alive. I have my own conspiracy theory with respect to the killing of Charlie Kirk and the purpose behind it. If it was a conspiracy, I'm willing to allow that the official narrative as now has a degree of plausibility. That this Tyler Robinson in a love affair with a guy who's identifies as a trans woman and was mad enough to go out and premeditatingly kill Charlie Kirk. I'm saying that's plausible. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it's plausible. There is plausibility to it. If something happens to Tyler Robinson, it's funny. I went out talking about the ostrich cull, and now we're on to and I was going to say at the beginning, I'm going to leave that aside for a little bit. Let's see how things play out, and we're going full bore on it. A lot of citizens took to the street to protest, but BB, then October 7th happened. It worked out for him because he was facing corruption charges, bribery, etc. Amy's writing, Tucker lied with his dad affiliation with the CIA. Something to remember. I have never liked Tucker Carlson. I didn't like him when he was with CNN. I didn't like him when he was with Fox. I don't like him now. I don't trust him. He is a player. I think there are strings pulling him. Are they Masonic strings? They're certainly, I doubt, Israeli strings, but are we looking at, is there a Vince McMahon type player, World Wrestling Entertainment type player in behind scripting things out? You're going to be, this is your role. You're the heel, you're the face. Now we're going to switch you. Now you're going to turn from being a face, from being a hero to a villain. And I'm not putting any faith whatsoever in Tucker Carlson or in Candace Owens or in Dave Rubin or in any of or in Redacted or in any of the players out there with their millions of followers who are trying to direct the narrative. I'm staying back of it paying attention to it, but I'm not getting invested. I'm not saying I trust that guy, I like that guy. This one says the truth. Not going to do it. Uh, and then Blossoms, as Lisa's writing, no, it's not like that with me talking about this game of telephone where, well, I know someone who knows someone who knows Charlie. He's saying, it's Charlie told me, like not me, but it's not like what you were saying. The person told this person. There are people that Charlie talked to. Everything I'm hearing, every time I hear it, it's not from the person who spoke directly to Charlie. It's from another it's step away. Well, I talked to someone who knew Charlie, and this is what they told me. Well, why aren't they talking? And but yeah, and equally, you have people claiming anonymity in the dark, keep it in the shadows. So maybe Blossoms, Lisa, maybe I went too far in saying, how the number of steps, but I'm not hearing it directly from someone who spoke to Charlie. It's always at least one more step removed. Anyway, uh, Max thinks that the facts are already contradictory and don't make sense. Tyler's text messages are strange. The bullet engravings are strange. And this is why the kid has to go to trial. I want to hear about this stuff. Um, Reassembling I don't know what's involved. The only rifle that I've ever broken down is a Canadian Forces C7 rifle and the C9 and the uh, what was the other one? Carl Gustafson machine gun. I've broken those down, but and broken down a Browning pistol, 9 millimeter. But I saw someone do a video on what's involved in breaking down a Mauser. But again, this is why it is so vitally important that this kid not end up like Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm half expecting it to happen. I am half expecting I'm leaning toward thinking there was a conspiracy, that Tyler Robinson was not acting alone. That's the presentation right now, as it was with Lee Harvey Oswald. The presentation is that Tyler Robinson was acting alone. He has to remain on this side of the veil for us to find out the truth. Uh, and even then, there will be questions if he does, but I'm willing to wait and withhold judgment until all the facts are presented. Um, and then Lisa goes on to say, nobody's generalizing the entire population when someone says, "Hey, Gordon, Canada's really messed up. Their policies are screwed." Uh, that It's talking about the government of Canada, not the people. But there's a tendency I find when it comes to Israel, and it's to equate Israel to the Jews. And I think part of the blame for that belongs to someone like Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu has a bit of a I am Israel. If you criticize me, you're criticizing Israel. And if you criticize Israel, you hate Jews. And that's wrong. But we saw the same thing during COVID. Anthony Fauci said, I am the science. And if you criticize me, you're criticizing science. No, not criticizing science. Science is a process of investigation and discovery. I'm not criticizing that, Anthony Fauci. I'm criticizing you for lying, 6 feet distancing, you know, proven to, mitigate against viral spread. You pulled that out of your rear end. But it's a similar machination. Anthony Fauci, I am the science. Now, I don't know that Benjamin Netanyahu, I don't believe he's actually said, I am Israel, but that's inferred. The way he talks, it's very much inferred. He might as well say it, but he doesn't say those words exactly. And no individual is above criticism. Uh, And then he's cautioning Lisa not to go there about controlled opposition, we will never know. And that's the thing. We will never know, likely. Although, um, and Lisa goes on to say that nobody's generalizing the entire population of Israel. When someone says, "Hey, Gordon, Canada," oh, I already read that. Sorry about that. Uh, Heather is saying, or not Heather, sorry, Lisa is saying, when does the genocide stop? Or what? And I don't personally, I don't think it's a genocide. I think it's war. If that is a genocide, then there was genocide during World War One, World War Two. There's genocide going on in Sudan. There's genocide that went on in Syria. There's genocide that went on in Yemen. The sad reality of the matter is that when you're in war, bad things happen. Innocent people get killed. It's happened in Yemen. It's happening in Sudan right now. It happened in Syria. It happened during World War II. Innocent people died during war, and war is horrific. And so, if Israel did want to commit, if they did want to end the population in Gaza, they could carpet bomb it like we did Dresden during World War II. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. You know, if they wanted to. But anyway, let me read what you wrote. As Lisa is of the opinion that it is a genocide, that Bibi is going to jail, and that he knows it, and that he did the same thing Trudeau did with the truckers. He called the Emergencies Act. There can be no election until they stop. That's one thing I'm curious as to. I don't know. Uh, Bibi had only just gotten reelected. He's the guy. This is his third time being prime minister of Israel. He's had this is so he was prime minister, went out of office, came back, went out of office, and has come back a third time. And his third time as prime minister happened just prior to October 7th, I think in the summer before. And if they have a 4-year election cycle, I don't know what the Israeli election cycle is. If they have a 4-year election cycle, then 2023, 2024, 25, 26, 27, he may not be due to be required to hold an election for another couple of years. Uh, of course, if his party, which I think is Likud, if his party is defeated in the Knesset, then I believe that they follow something of a parliamentary tradition, and that means about that if his governing coalition can no longer maintain the competence of the Knesset, then that would force an election. So we'll find out. Um, and then Blossom or Lisa saying, sorry, I know the chat is a little delayed compared to what you're talking about. And don't worry about it. I enjoy this. I enjoy, and even when it's hard to keep up. I was just answering you when you were specifically talking about it. No, I know. I know that's how it works with the chat, unfortunately. Nancy, notwithstanding our disagreements on points, and this is the thing in today's world, even when too often individuals, when they disagree with someone, they shut them down. I don't want to foster that kind of discussion on my channel. And it means saying, please, everyone, like and subscribe. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please do. Max just liked it. And then Max is saying that there are not too many places where these topics can be discussed openly, and I enjoy these chats. But you don't learn anything by just talking to people who agree with you on everything. I mean, let's face it, I think the one thing all of us will agree on, regardless of our conspiratorial theories, is that none of us know the full story. None of us know it. We're all guessing and we all have our ideas, but no one knows for 100% certain, and no one can offer up incontrovertible proof of anything. And so by discussing things, even when we disagree, you can learn. Whale has shown up. He's given me a like. Is it just me or is Gordon's camera maybe turned off? Audio is good. Well, anyone else? No, my camera is working from my end. I can see myself, unfortunately. Uh, And then Max kind of echoes my sentiments about hearing differing perspectives. And and then Danny's got something to watch, a live stream. Is that my channel? Whatever the case. And Lisa says the camera is working. I can end the video there. We've been going on for an hour and 15 minutes. Uh, and oh, the link that Danny just shared with me is the entire Patrick Bett, the PBD podcast interview with Charlie Kirk. Probably where that clip came from, but you'll get the entire context. Yeah, and but this was a couple years ago, I believe. That particular this is where in Charlie Kirk openly speculated, as have I, that there was something of a stand down order on October 7th, that Benjamin Netanyahu and senior officials within their security and military apparatus basically gave Hamas and Islamic Jihad and whatever groups are associated with them, gave them something of a victory by standing down. Now, that it should not be confused with a false flag attack. A classic false flag attack occurred at the start of World War II when German soldiers dressed up in the uniform of Polish soldiers. So they put on the enemy's uniform and then they attacked a radio station on the Polish German border. And then the German population was propagandized with the news that Polish soldiers had just attacked the Vaterland. They just attacked us. And so we're defending ourselves. That is a false, that is a complete false flag, putting on the uniform of your enemy, falling. It's the same idea as, sailing a ship under a false flag. Hamas was not, they were not IDF soldiers dressed up as Hamas militants. They were Hamas militants who did what they did on October 7th. They were not, it was not a false flag. The term I've heard used for this, where there's a stand down order, is that it's a green flag. They're, getting the red flags that would stop it from happening are removed. I think that's what happened to a large degree on 9/11. I think it was a green flag operation where the US allowed something to happen and maybe even had a little hand here and there. They knew what was going to happen, they knew what was being planned. Let's put explosives in those buildings so that, not only will now they can come crashing down and, maybe, whatever. Uh, and then Max is writing, very possible. Thanks for the link. I haven't seen the whole thing, just only seen the clip. And it's always important to watch. A lot of people are sharing texts, clips of Charlie Kirk out of context to prove that he was a racist, that he was this, that he was that he was, and they want to take the part that supports their narrative, and then they leave out the part before and the part after that totally repudiate it. And in our TikTok world, a lot of people will see a short little TikTok style video and they will take that as smoking gun proof. We see that now with the war in Gaza. And as I say, horrible things happen in war, but so many of the messages and pictures and images that we see coming from Gaza are not sourced. We don't know, it could be Yemen, it could be Syria from a few years ago, it could be Sudan right now. I mean, rubble looks the same, war-torn, highly populated areas, whether they're in Syria, Yemen, or Gaza, they look the same. There's no landmarks. The landmarks have all been devastated in Yemen and Syria and Sudan right now. And so you see these horrible images, and the caption says that this child in Gaza, Gaza City, in Can Yunis, or wherever. Well, how do you know? But the thing is, when it tugs at your emotional heartstrings, there's a tendency to want to believe it. You just want to believe it because the images. I saw a video that was absolutely gut wrenching, where a woman was crouching over a body of a child wrapped in linen, and a dead child. And she was asking, she pulled the mask back. You see this young boy, and she's asking where, with the translation below saying, "Where did they hit you, my son?" And if that doesn't tug at your heartstrings, you don't have a heart. But I don't know whether I'm unique in this, but I have the capacity to pull back and say, okay, wait a minute. Do I know that this happened in Gaza? You know, is it possible that Hamas could stage such a thing in order to use it for propaganda? And I don't dismiss that possibility. And likewise, I say, could it be genuine? And I allow, yeah, it could be genuine as well, but I don't know. And I'm not going to take that as smoking gun proof. Uh, let's just catch up. Oh, Max is bringing up something I'm very familiar with. There's a book by an author named James Banford, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. And the book is called Body of Secrets. And Max is writing another proposed false flag is Operation Northwoods. And that's detailed in this book. It's from the Kennedy administration. And Operation Northwoods was put forward by the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. And what it called for was for crashing planes into buildings, sinking ships, and committing other acts of domestic terrorism on U.S. territory, and then to blame any such activity on Cuba in order to build American public support and international public support for a war of invasion into Cuba. And it was called Operation Northwoods. When I read it years ago, I probably still have the book in a box somewhere, Body of Secrets. It was the book, James Banford, the author, indicated that no one knows if it got to Kennedy himself or whether it was lower down the totem pole, but it was kiboshed. It was, we're not doing that. And that's one of the suggestions of why was JFK taken out. He refused to invade Cuba. And Cuba was vitally, such a huge asset that the United States had. The CIA could operate there because they weren't bound by the US Constitution. The mafia loved Cuba. It was their little playground. The Godfather saga, the movies and the book, um, make that patently clear, and that's not, that's factually based. I mean, this is the Godfather saga is one of those things where art reflects life. Mario Puzo, who wrote the books, he was intimately familiar with the workings of the mafia underworld. I should do a video just talking about why I love The Godfather so much. It's my favorite movie. Um, and then what's Danny writing? Um, news, north, east, west, south, all points away from the center to keep you away from what's important. Distraction. Yeah. Blossom is agreeing, saying exactly, Danny. Uh, and Danny is of the opinion that there was not a racist bone in Charlie's body. I would agree. I don't think he was a racist at all, but it helps to frame people. That's what they do. Uh, and then what's Eat Me writing? Nancy's writing a good reminder. We learned that factoid in school when they taught us useful content. Not sure what that's about, but no big deal. Danny's talking about the movie Wag the Dog, another great movie. Nowhere near, in my estimation, close to Godfather, but Wag the Dog is excellent. Dustin Hoffman, Dennis Leary, Willie Nelson, Woody Harrelson, who else? Robert De Niro, uh, a who's who of Hollywood. And you know, they were kind of playing off the Monica Lewinsky thing a bit. In that movie, the president had been caught in an indiscretion with what they called a Firefly girl, like a girl guide, an underage girl. He'd been caught in this indiscretion. And so the US had a phony war with the nation of Albania. And their ability to, what's instructive in watching that movie is you see the degree to which that people can be manipulated. And the thing is, and by the mainstream. However, it must be recognized now that a large part of the population has tuned out the mainstream, don't watch the newscasts anymore. And if they do, they don't believe anything that's being reported. But people tend to turn to social media. My site maybe, but I'm thinking more like sites like, oh, David Rubin, Young Turks, Redacted, uh, and countless others. And they say, well, this guy knows, this station, this social media platform, it knows I'm getting the real truth here. And I would caution you on that. I think you have to be every bit as skeptical about social media platforms and alternative media outlets as you have to be just as circumspect with alternative media as you do with the mainstream. Don't let your guard down for either of them. There are competing narratives out there. Um, so I'm just trying to catch up to what's being written. And then Nancy is saying that if Hamas could stage such a thing, like I was talking about with that, he's saying that Israel could hide such a thing. In today's world, the ability to put your narrative out there has never been greater. Anyone can start a YouTube channel, Rumble channel, whatever, Facebook pages, Instagram accounts, and then you've got Telegraph and Parler, and you got all these ways for people to put their message out there. And I don't think that Israel can hide. And no one side can control the narrative at all. And so you have competing narratives competing for, our views, our clicks, our engagement. Everyone's hooked on engagement. And there can be players behind the scene, Israeli players behind the scene, trying to get positive, trying to get their spin out there. But likewise, the Islamic world, they're out there doing it too. They're also trying to get their spin. I always say propaganda is not, it's not, is there Palestinian propaganda? Yes, absolutely. 100%. There is Palestinian propaganda. There is also Israeli propaganda. And there's a tendency once you form an emotional attachment to one side or the other, then you'll say that, well, my side doesn't put out propaganda. My side puts out facts. Only the other guys lie. Only the other guys spin. They're the propagandists, not my side. They both do it. Anyway, um, man, so much being written. Paul, a name I don't think I've seen before, or at least not tonight, has written JFK was taken out because he saw what the CIA was becoming and he wanted to break it up. He gave that famous speech about how evil festers in the dark and his opposition to secret societies. I, there's no greater secret society in my books than Freemasonry. And you can find his speech is still out there. You can still find it. Him talking about how democracy is, that the idea of operating clandestine, secret little groups and societies, that how that is poison in a free and democratic society. I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember the exact way that JFK framed it. And then Danny's last word, I'm right at the bottom. Apparently, Canada passed a lot that they can use propaganda on us. Not sure if there's any truth to it, but if there is, that's freaking scary. Uh, I'm not exactly sure what you're writing there, Danny, but in this AI media, social media driven world, you've got to be, you better have your eyes wide open, and you better be discerning, and you better check yourself. If you find yourself becoming emotionally involved with a story, recognize that that emotional attachment that you have can be used to manipulate you in one direction or another. And my firm's strongest possible suggestion is to, as much as you're able, to take a step back and force yourself to look at the opposing point of view, because emotion, I say it all the time on this channel, we have our frontal lobes where higher thought processes take place in the frontal lobes of the brain. That's where we get critical thinking. But when we get into an emotional state, when we become emotional, the frontal lobe shut down and we retreat back into, when we can go all the way back to the brain stem, which is sometimes called the reptilian brain. We get into fight or flight. We just react. We stop thinking. And it is so important in today's world. We need these two frontal lobes fully engaged. And we have to, emotion, we are emotional creatures. We're not, we like to think we're rational, but we are emotional, and we're all guilty of it. That when our emotions get engaged, well, I was angry. Well, I was sad. Well, I was upset. And that's like a blanket excuse for so many of our day to day interactions. Well, I shouldn't have done it, but I was angry. It's not my fault. I'm excused because I was angry. What else is being written? Danny's saying we must be stoic. And that's a good way to look at it. We've got to be circumspect, got to try and do our best. And it's almost like what they call bedside manner. Think about doctors who have to deliver such devastating news. We're going to have to amputate your leg. And if you get emotionally involved, you're going to be wrecked and you're not going to be able to do your job. You know, and so emotional detachment, bedside manner. What else is being Eatme's writing that propaganda equals communism in her view. The thing is, we all engage in it. Western democracies engage in it. Communist regimes engage in propaganda. Monarchies engage in propaganda. Military dictatorships, doesn't matter. Everyone engages in propaganda. And a lot of times the justification is that, well, the end justifies the means. We are right. We are good. This has to happen. We're, achieving an ultimately good goal. And so if we have to lie and propagandize to the population to bring them on side and agree, well, fine, because the ultimate goal is good. And if we have to use propaganda to sell it, I mean, marketing, anytime you watch advertising, I know a fair bit about advertising. I used to work in marketing, and ultimately, what you're looking to do is you want to pick a scab. There's something called spin in selling. So you define the situation that someone is under. Here's the situation. And within that situation, here's the problem. And you make that problem, you blow it up as big as possible to make that problem seem massive. And then the I is implication. What is the implication? If we don't address this problem, then this is going to happen. And then finally, the payoff is the need. So here's what you need to do. I've defined for you the situation. I've pointed out the problem to you. And I've shown you how big it is. And then I've shown you the implications if we don't address this. And now here's my solution for you. And if I've done a good job propagandizing you about the problem, about the implications, then you're going to follow along with my solution, what needs to be done. Uh, and then what's Amy writing? That when during the COOF, I don't know if you meant to write COVID, they amended a law that allowed journalists to lie without facing prosecution. Oh yeah, remember this not fondly. Uh, and then Paul is writing that in 2014, Obama repealed the Smith-Mundt Act, which had previously prevented the U.S. government from being about to propagandize the U.S. population. This opened the doors to the feds being able to engage in propaganda. I wasn't familiar with that, but the thing is, propaganda, this Smith-Mundt Act notwithstanding, propaganda propaganda has always been out there. It was used rampantly in World War I and World War II. It was used in Korea. It was used during the Vietnam War, the Gulf of Tonkin event, Gulf of Tonkin incident. We get lied to all the time. The thing is, think about it in the context of the time. It's the 1960s. I forget what year exactly the Gulf of Tonkin incident was. Maybe it was 1964. Not sure exactly when. It was after Kennedy, and American soldiers have come under intense fire from the Viet Cong in Southeast Asia, the Southeast Asian country of Vietnam. Numerous casualties are being reported, and Americans, oh my God, the Viet Cong, those horrible Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese are attacking our soldiers. Damn it, let's go. And you get mad. Well, they got you now. They've got you. Oh my God, you see what they did to those children in Gaza? It's horrible. Oh my God, we've got to stop this. And you get emotional, you stop thinking, but you don't know when you're being lied to. We now know that they took a minor skirmish, a few shots fired at a patrol boat on some river in Vietnam was turned into, you know, the Battle of the Bulge. It was turned into this major military engagement. They took this little tiny little, few shots fired and they turned it into the Battle of Bull Run. And Americans got upset. And the next thing you know, blink your eyes, and there are 50,000 American servicemen dead lying in the ground. Would that have happened if people had been a little more circumspect, a little more stoic, to use Danny's term? And said, well, wait a minute, is this true? Well, our side doesn't lie. Why would they lie about something like that? That's a good question to ask. When it comes to Gaza, why would Hamas, why does Hamas have a motivation to lie to the world? Do they? I think they do. Anyway, let's read. Too many messages have been coming in. So I read that. I'm just trying to see what I want to read. Lisa's writing, people forget what happened during the flu pandemic. All the people we didn't trust are now the people that everybody trusts. In 1960, I think it was 1968, there was something called the Hong Kong flu pandemic. And I read on the CDC's own website, they estimated that globally, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 million people died in a 1 to 2 year period, 1968, 1970, in that range. That the Hong Kong flu pandemic was horrible. And this was at a time when they didn't have a PCR test to test everything that moved. These are just based on, computer modeled estimations, 4 million deaths. That's at a time when the world's population was less than half of what it is now. And yet millions of people dying of Hong Kong flu. around the world. And what did they do? What were the measures? Where were the lockdowns? No. In the United States, they had Woodstock, they had the Summer of Love, Ashbury Park. Why can't we go back to simpler times? Danny's writing problem, reaction, solution. This was I was talking about spin. Situation, problem, implication. Here's what you need to do. It's the same problem, reaction, solution. Create the problem, wait for the reaction, and give them the solution. That the solution that you wanted to implement from the very start. I want everyone to have to take my pharmaceutical product. Well, first we need a problem. Oh, guess what? A human and a bat interacted in a wet market in Wuhan, China, and now we have a horrible disease spreading around. Uh, and then Paul's writing, we saw this in action in 2020 with the suppression of information about the magic juice. Yeah, that'd be late. Yeah. The only thing you were allowed to say is that if you went on the air like Rachel Madcow Nadeau or whatever her name is with CNBC and said that we now know that with each person who's taken 2 shots, we now know the virus stops. You cannot get infected. If you have a platform, you can spread misinformation. You cannot get infected, which means the virus cannot use you to jump to another person. And that's what people wanted to believe. They wanted to believe it. And so I would suggest right now that there are people who want to believe that Israel is horrible, horrible. And so because they want to believe it, they do believe it. And I'm not suggesting that Israel is perfect, far from it. I think there are some bad players, same as I think there are bad players in Canada, same as I think there are bad players in the United States. Uh, wow. And Danny's saying that MSM is controlled by 8 corporations: Fox, Walt Disney, which includes ABC, ESPN, FX, and Disney brands, National Amusements, which owns Paramount, and Comcast. Uh, the centralization of media control, not just in the United States, but Canada and globally, is incredibly concerning. And I'm here to say I believe there are Masonic networks, that there is a Masonic network with all kinds of different little branches, Club of Rome, the Masons themselves, Skull and Bones, Coconut Grove, Bohemian Grove, Bilderbergers. They have their little tentacles everywhere, and they are in the major media corporations, in the Sinclair Group, and all these media outfits, Disney and everything else, framing the narrative, conditioning our minds, trying to get us away from biblical truth, trying to get us away from having, eyes to see and ears to hear. They do not want us having eyes to see and ears to hear. So many times in the Bible, we see Jesus saying, let those with eyes to see, with ears to hear. You need discernment in today's world, and no discernment is better than that which is provided by the Holy Spirit. Uh, and then Paul says that Smith-Mundt that's an American law, obviously, and it's not for Canucks like me. For what it's worth, Paul, I am Canadian born, served in the Canadian Armed Forces. With that being said, I did spend 10 years growing up in your I'm assuming you're American, and I did spend 10 years, almost 10, living in New York, New Jersey, and Oregon. Uh, and then what's Eat Me writing? We unfortunately live by design in a society that promotes emotions over facts. Used to be the other way around. Oh yeah. Uh, they know that humanity, that we are emotional, and that when push comes to shove and they need to drive a certain reaction, they will go to emotion. They're not going to go with facts. Our attention span is zero in today's world. People don't even know their own phone numbers anymore because I don't own a cell phone. Danny, Nancy, Whale, the regulars know, Max know that I don't own a cell phone. but I know I'm a very rare bird who doesn't own a cell phone, and I don't want one because when you own people have outsourced their brains to their devices, and they don't even know their own phone numbers anymore. When I was growing up, I knew the phone numbers of my best friends. I didn't have them in a device. I didn't even have them written down. They were memorized. And all my friends were like that. They didn't need to, you know, and it's crazy. It's crazy. Um, yeah, he's writing, oh, I like this. At Paul, I take offense to the term Canucks. You should have typed Canuckistan. Yes, we are that far gone. And I know that Nancy meant that as a joke. That's why I read it in the tone that I tried to. Yeah, I know that you didn't offend Nancy. I don't think you can offend her. I think it would take, I'm sure you can, but it would take a lot more than just calling Canadians Canucks. Wow. And Danny's saying to buy a copy of the Bible before the Canadian government decides to ban that as well. And Max is saying that in Brave New World, written by Aldous Huxley, that the Bible is banned in that story. I don't remember that. I read Brave New World a couple times. I didn't remember that the Bible was banned. It wouldn't surprise me. It's been years since I read that book. And um, had another thought, but whatever. Can't. And Blossoms, Lisa's writing, Gordon, Zionists own and control the financial system. You know what? There are, to me, I take this word Zionism and I replace it with Freemasonry, Zionist Freemason. And you don't have to be Jewish to be a Freemason. Obviously, George W. Bush, many of the US presidents, like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, were Masonic as well. And the health system, the educational system, the media, yeah, no, I call them Masonic, not Zionist. Uh, and Danny's saying that Rockefeller, the Rockefeller family, that the Rockefeller family created the American education. There's certainly the Rockefeller Foundation certainly had a big hand into the creation of the industrial medical complex. And the Rockefellers are not Jewish. They're Masonic is the way. And Walt Disney was not Jewish. Read his biography years ago when I was a kid. But Michael Eisner, who would later become chairman of Disney, yes, is Jewish. But is he Jewish or is he just a Jew who says he's a Jew but is not, but belongs to the synagogue of Satan? And the synagogue of Satan, for me, is Masonry. And yes, there are Jews who say there are Jews, the Rothschilds, and these incredibly wealthy, powerful, influential people who outwardly, they want the world to think they're Jewish. I say they're Masonic. Um, and then Danny's saying that the nice thing about not having a cell phone is when you're not home, people can't reach you or they can't leave you a message, and you choose to call them back. There's an expectation that people have that you're now available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I've had people take me to task and they're like, well, how do I get a hold of you? Like in the old days, come over, call me when I'm at home. I mean, our phone in the house, my wife does have a cell phone. We don't have a landline. So here's the number. I know it. I don't need the phone. I know what the number is. If you need to call me on that number. And if I'm around the phone, which means if I'm at home, if I'm around my wife, then you can talk to me. Um, and Blossom, Lisa's writing Bible also talks about when good is perceived as evil and evil is perceived when lies become truth and truth become lies. Good is called evil, evil is called good. It's good We're told in today's world that it is good, it is caring. We're showing care to children when we prescribe them puberty blockers with their dangerous side effects, and when the industrial medical complex performs mutilating surgeries to healthy organs and tissue. We're doing it because this is care. This is the upside down world. That's not care. That is not care. Mutilating healthy organs and tissue in children and prescribing dangerous pharmaceuticals with horrible, side effects. That's not care over a condition because a child is confused and thinks that they should have been born into a different gender. I wa I should have been born 7 foot tall. I could have been in the NBA. I could have had a Hall of Fame career. If I'd been 7 foot tall. If the pharmaceutical industry could find a way to make me 7 foot tall so that I could affirm my height identity, come on, it's not good. Um, and Danny's taking exception to to referring to Canucks Canada as Canuckistan. No, Danny prefers Chinata, and we're moving in that direction. And Whale is saying that all of the astronauts are apparently Freemasons. That would not surprise me in the least if Neil Armstrong, Alan Shepard, and any other names. Those are the only two that come to mind. Neil Armstrong, famously, with his one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, first man to supposedly step foot on the moon. And Alan Shepard's the only other name I can think. There are others, though. And Nancy's, with respect to what we were talking about earlier, it's really hard to offend little old Nancy. Max is writing that the United States Capitol cornerstone was put there by Freemasons in a ceremonial placement of the cornerstone of the Capitol, September 18, 1793. Wouldn't surprise me, obviously, George Washington was a Mason. You can find portraits of him wearing his Masonic apron. Thomas Jefferson as well. I believe Benjamin Franklin, so many of what the Americans call their fathers of Confederation. Founding fathers. I don't think they say fathers of Confederation. I think they say founding fathers. Canada, we call it Confederation. And Paul believes that we maple syrup land people are a funny bunch. You got to have a sense of humor if you're going to live up here where it's so cold half the year. Depending where you live, my area is not too bad. Montreal gets a little worse. Get up to Quebec City, where I used to live, man, Quebec City snow up to here. I also lived in North Bay. I've been up to Wainwright, Alberta, where damn the snow starts falling in late August, early September. It's crazy. Anyway, wow, the messages just keep flying in, but I'm going to wrap it up. I'm losing my voice. It's after midnight. We're coming up on 12. It's 12:35. My voice is just about gone. I'll see y'all in a night or two. Thank you, everyone who came out. And again, if you made it to the end and you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'd ask you to think about it at least or do it. But obviously, your choice. And likewise, thank you for all the thumbs up. Appreciate it. And if anyone wants to snip out my content or do anything with it, it's open domain. I realize who's going to share a 2 hour long video, but if you want to share out a little 2 minute clip or whatever across whatever platforms you use, please do and invite people to check me out. Raw, bare bones, very basic station, no bells and whistles whatsoever, no strings behind my back. I believe that Tucker Carlson redacted. I believe that so many of these stations you see with millions of followers, that they've got people behind their back pulling their strings, telling them what they're allowed to say, or having them push a narrative, or having them stay away from that. Doesn't happen with me. When it comes to the whole Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson, everything going on there. Right now, I'm keeping an open mind on things. I'm not willing to commit to any one narrative yet. I'll see where things go. And As I say, if something happens to Tyler Robinson, and I half expected that it will, and they'll say, "Well, we kind of expected this to happen." No, no. If you'd wanted to keep him alive, you could have. We'll see what happens, but uh, at any rate, thank you all for watching. And as Max is saying, God bless everyone. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Max seems to always enjoy coming here. A lot of you do. I enjoy it. And I'll end the video the way that I like to end my videos, with a blessing that from the book of Numbers. And the blessing is this: may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and make his face to shine upon you. And may the Lord God Almighty, creator of all things, may he grant you peace. And I'm here to say, as I always do, you can find that peace, get into his word, get into the Bible, find a community of faith, engage with that community of faith, and invite the Holy Spirit in, and ask for eyes to see and for ears to hear, and ask for a spirit of understanding in this complicated, upside down, crazy world. We'll talk to y'all later. God bless.